Hello and welcome to the bookshelf tour. As you can see, I've already started in this video, but it's all quite messy and disorganized, and I just want it to look nicer. So here are some books that actually aren't mine. They are my mother's, but she likes to randomly put books on my shelf, which I appreciate, but some of them I just don't want to read at the moment. I also have some books that I read for university, some of which I would actually reread, like 1493 and the Immigration and Law Society book were quite interesting. I also have some classics and, some art supplies and some contraband that I have nothing to do with. Yeah, right now I'm just taking everything out and reorganizing it a bit. I also have my amazing Calvin and Hobbes comics collection. By collection, I mean one book. And a lot of these classics were actually given to me by my university professor. It was her last class that she was teaching, and she wanted to get rid of a bunch of books that she had. And so, we all came to her office, and she just loaded us all up with tons and tons of classics. I actually ended up giving a lot of them away, but I did keep a few that I would really like to read. And so those are sitting on the bottom shelf. Here's me showing you my earring collection, like we're in kindergarten show and tell. So yeah, I essentially took all the books out of the second and third shelves. These are two books that my mom put on my shelf as well, and I would actually like to read them at some point, but not anytime soon, so they're gonna go someplace else for now. Here's me doing a little dancey dance, so there's that. And yeah, now I'm just taking all of the books out of the shelves and reorganizing them to make them look pretty. I'm not anti sort of color coding your books. I think it looks nice sometimes. I've done that before and I didn't really want to do that again. So I made a stack of white books. I grouped all the black books together, and I also made a stack of sort of reddish orange books, and that's the extent of thought that went into the color coding of these books. So this is the top shelf. I'm not going to get too deep into it because I might talk about it in a different video, but to the right is a lineup of some of my favorite books, not a definitive list, but pretty close. And to the left is a stack of books on my immediate TBR list. Moving down, on the left side are books that I have read, and on the right is the rest of the books that I have yet to read on my entire bookshelf. And so I won't go over every single book that I own, but I will go through some of them. So we have We Were 8 Years in Power by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin, which is the only Baldwin book I've ever read, and I think that that's kind of a tragedy, and I really need to get my grubby little hands on some of his fiction. We also have Misery by Stephen King, and The Stand by Stephen King. I just really, really love this edition of it. And then we have this edition of 1984, which I personally believe is a crime against humanity. I think it's so ugly, but it's sitting on my shelf, and I don't really care enough about it to replace it with a nicer edition. So, still haven't read it. That's going to sit there for now. Next, we have Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup. We move on to the next shelf. So here we have Smoke What's in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, Color of Water by James McBride, Never Let Me Go by Ishiguro, and Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which is such an underrated book. It's a utopian novel that was written in 1915, and it describes essentially an isolated island that is composed entirely of women who reproduce asexually, and they're fully self-sufficient and badasses, and then these men sort of stumble upon the island and are convinced that they have to rescue the women, and all the women are like, what? No, we don't need your help, we're gonna imprison you. And it's just excellent, and I never would have heard of it if my friend in high school hadn't recommended it to me. Lastly on this shelf is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I did not like this book, but this edition is so gorgeous, and it's illustrated really beautifully, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it just because of how pretty it is. Moving on, I have Thick and Other Essays by Tressie McMillan Cotton, Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, which I think is the best last name you could ever have if you write thrillers, and also The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Lastly, I have my collection of classics, which I'll probably go over in a different video. So that's all. Thanks for watching this incredibly short video, and I'll see you next time.